Welcome back to the Friday 5 for December 1st, 2023. My name is Andrew Ayers. I'm a business law and estate planning attorney with offices in Edina, Minnesota and New York City. Let's take about 5 minutes and look at 5 quick questions from the week. Maybe these are quick legal questions you've had in the past and you'd just like to know the answer to. Question number 1 this week: can I bring a lawsuit if I actually haven't been damaged? So this was an interesting call I had with a client where we were discussing various options for the lawsuit that we are considering filing. And there's a few moving parts that we have to get through and some other issues that we have to resolve first. But one of the issues the client brought up was something that doesn't really actually affect him. In fact, if we were going to have a lawsuit about what had happened and somebody was injured or damaged from what the client was concerned about, it actually wouldn't be the client. It would be the other party that you were suing. And so the question we were running into is whether we can even bring a lawsuit if there's been no damage. Now, the simple answer is you can always bring a lawsuit. The question is whether it's going to continue as a lawsuit. It can be easily dismissed if it's a frivolous lawsuit or if there's no basis for the claim. But in this case, we were looking at being no damages. And the question really goes to the issue of liability. And so in that regard, you may sometimes see lawsuits where there are no damages for somebody, but the lawsuit is really based on liability, meaning who was responsible, who was at fault for the situation. In those kind of situations, you can file a lawsuit and you can get a judgment or you can get a decision saying who is liable, even though you may not have any damages. Question 2 this week, and coming out of the same client: can I bring a lawsuit for a breach of contract before the payment is due? So going further into some of the facts we are dealing with, we actually have a contract written down, signed by everybody, and we think the other party is not actually going to fulfill the terms of the contract, but we don't know for certain. In fact, payment's not even due until early 2024, so we have to wait and see whether or not the other party fails to make the payment. Now, based on what's going on, it does sure seem like the other party is not going to make the payment in 2024, and we are going to eventually have a breach of contract. However, at this point, there actually hasn't been a breach yet because we've had the initial contract signing, there's been a payment, everyone's been doing the work they're supposed to be doing, but we're not sure that the other side won't actually make their payment that's due in 2024. Question 3 this week: do owners have to have an equal share of the business? And this is actually a common misconception I have from clients who come to meet with me, and let's say they have a couple of business partners, so they're going to have 3 people owning a business, and they just assume that it's all going to be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. The fact of the matter is it does not have to be 1/3 each. You can have differing ownership interests depending upon what everyone's bringing to the table. So in this situation, we have 3 owners, and one owner is putting in a lot of money up front to help the business get started. The other 2 are going to be doing some day-to-day operations and are actually going to work in the business as really more of a side hustle than their primary jobs. And so in that situation, what we can do is we can skew the ownership interest so that the person who is putting in the money and is going to be doing more of the work up front actually gets more of an ownership interest in the company. So you don't necessarily have to automatically divide the ownership interest in the company equally between the parties. We can have various reasons why we would have different ownership interests. Question 4: is a life insurance policy part of a probate estate? So I'm working with a client whose parents passed away, and we have a life insurance policy that we have to deal with. And the question is it part of the probate estate? And the answer is it depends. It's a classic lawyer's answer, but it depends upon how that life insurance beneficiary is designated. What we don't want to do is have the life insurance beneficiary be to my estate, in which case any proceeds that come in from that life insurance would in fact be part of your probate estate. And if you're in a state where there's an estate tax, or if you have a significant life insurance policy or lots of policies and you end up above the federal limit, you may end up paying taxes on those, on the distribution from that life insurance policy. What most people will do, and what your financial advisor will likely tell you to do, is make sure we name somebody as the beneficiary so that those life insurance policy proceeds can go directly to that person and not have to be tied up with the probate court, and especially if we have estate tax issues, that will help us avoid those problems. Question 5: do I have to use a trust for my LLC ownership? So this was a client looking at some more advanced planning. We have business interests, we have estate planning, and the client had actually seen a few of my videos, had done some reading and said, you know what, I've got these LLCs, do I have to put the interest in a trust? So the answer is no, you don't have to, but in this situation it was going to be a good idea. And if you've done some advanced planning, if you own multiple businesses, multiple companies, let's say you've created LLCs for a variety of real estate properties, then you may want to consider using a trust as a way to hold your business interest. It can allow for some incapacity planning and some succession planning in case something happens to you, so that your business ownership interests don't necessarily have to go through your local probate court. So there we are, about 5 questions, about 5 minutes. So if you like the video, you can hit the like or the thumbs up button below. You can subscribe for future episodes on YouTube or wherever you're watching this video. You can submit a question for future episodes in the link below. You can always go to 𝙃𝙀𝙍𝙀.com for a legal strategy session or some more information. And wherever you are, I hope you have a wonderful weekend.